All right, well, let's get this going. This is the first time I've streamed on this platform, so okay, I'm streaming on a different platform than what this may be posted to. So hopefully this will go well. If not, I will have to do it again. But I wanted to create a quick video showing how I made this animation here, and let's see if I can play it a little bit. You can watch this on my channel. It should be labeled animation test, and you can listen to the sound right here. Because I'm streaming, the quality is going to be so. But this came out pretty good. I'll just play a little bit more of the animation right here, because that's that's where most of the motion of this animation comes from. The character shrugs, and it ends like that. So yeah, so taking one step at a time, the way that I did this was first I started in a program called Cascadeur. And this, if you're an animator and if you haven't tried this out, you really need to, because it streamlines a lot of the process that animation, basically the animators have, that the animation process typically takes, and there's more to it than what I can go over here. But essentially what I did was use their motion capture feature, and what that does is you can put it in a video. There's a whole process for that. Put it in a video, it will get the approximate positions of the character, typically with their auto posing tool. And with that, that's pretty cool, because there's there's more than what I can get into, but basically that helps figure out the individual poses for each frames. And then after processing the motion capture, what I would do is go in here and remove extra frames, focusing on the keyframes. Now, as it is, I probably have way too much animation information anyway. So this is really still a learning process for me. But this came out pretty good. It probably could be a little bit more sparse, because the main motion in the character is the head, and the character's pretty much just talking. So I probably have too many keyframes in here anyway. But yeah, hopefully I can get better at that as I practice. You'll notice that the different parts are broken up so that we can focus on the keyframes from each part. So the rest of the body, it really doesn't need that many keyframes. It probably could, like I said, be even fewer. And we have a number of keyframes on the head, the legs, and arms. And this, I think, is broken up even further to right arm, left leg, right leg, etc. So I won't be taking a look at every single decision here. I added more keyframes here just to control the motion of the shoulders. And instead of using auto posing, I got in here to control these, the point controllers. I couldn't remember what these are called, just points, but I think Cascadeur calls them controllers. Anyway, just refining that motion could be a little bit better anyway, but again, like I said, this is something I'm still learning to do at this level. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the way this is not my very first attempt, but I think it might be the very first time using the image-based or the video-based motion capture. You'll notice here, I think the legs were moving too much, so I cleared out some keyframes. And that's pretty much it. It's not super complicated. And then I would, from there, I exported the animation from there into iClone, where we get the Stuff of Nightmares. Their preview isn't very good, but the tools that they have are actually decent, especially for the face, because after working with the body motion capture and cleaning things up, One other thing I'll mention is I used some of their tools to move, I think, the hands around because they were too low. And so there's little things. I think I used the interval edit mode for that. So a lot of good tools in Cascadeur, but then I moved the animation here and did a combination. iClone has this really cool combination of using automated lip syncing with motion capture, and you can control and refine. You can control and refine both of those. I'll get to that a bit in a second. But let me see if I've got the AccuFace feature turned on, and let's see if I can show just a quick example of what this looks like if I'm recording this. So you can see the eyebrows of the character. Let me see if I can zoom in, make this a little bit more easy to see. So I can move the eyebrows, I can move the eyes around, and I can talk, smile, and it looks pretty bad. I'm not really focusing on the animation itself, but that's the overall idea. And although that looks pretty rough, it gives us a pretty good, essentially rough pass of the overall facial animation, especially for the eyes. This was a lifesaver, I think, for this particular test, because I didn't have to worry about animating the eyes myself. I could use mostly, I could have stood to refine some of the eye animation as it was, but overall it came out pretty good. And then that works together with their lip syncing. And again, just covering this real quick, there's a lot of different options as to the amount of each phoneme, or each, what I think iClone calls them visemes for some reason. I guess visible phoneme is probably where that comes from. So you can go in here, and if I zoom in, they're really tiny, but you can see the individual sounds and the different shapes. So in this case, it's S/Z, and the different phonemes are automatically chosen for us. But the nice thing is we can go in here and edit them, change the amount, and lots of different options, lots of different settings. There's even more for smoothing out the overall look and so forth. And so that, combined with the facial motion capture, creates a pretty good estimate, I would say, of the lip syncing. Now, it's not perfect, and there's certainly edits and refinements that I could have made. I just didn't happen to for this test. Also, just as a note, I used the denoise feature for this information, and I think I also had some of their other stabilization things turned on for this AccuFace thing. But all that to say, using these two things together was really pretty, like I said, it was a lifesaver, because there's so much information that happens even just for the face in a very short period of time from an animation standpoint. So being able to do that was very good. Also, I should mention that I recorded in 60 FPS before finally converting things down to 24. And that's really important, because if you start with 24, I found the results do not work. You really want to do that for both the visemes and the lip syncing and the facial motion capture. I've found, particularly, even especially for the lip syncing, it's probably more important for that. And I'm trying to remember if there's any other special settings I used. I don't think so. I think I cleared like the jaw and the shrug on the lips. Essentially, these are some of the facial shapes. I think I cleared those out on the motion capture so that they wouldn't interfere with the lip syncing, and used a setting. Oh, actually, that's interesting. I guess I used the normal. I thought I used a different setting for combining it with the AccuFace motion capture. But anyway, looks like I didn't. So I think that's it. I'm just trying to think out loud here. I think that's all the major pieces for what this entails, and then pretty much just moved it over to Blender using the export features and some of the tools that iClone provides. And I had already set up the character in Blender to be able to swap information back and forth. I have found a couple things worth noting, that some of the facial bones that are generated in the program don't work very well. So I turned, I think, the eye ones off and relied on the shape keys. Just some technical jargon if you happen to be into this stuff. And I'm trying to think. There was opportunity to refine the face using Blender's graph editor, but I don't think I did anything besides doing the eye blinks, and also adjusting the absolute position of especially for the top eyelids, because they were a little bit droopy. It made the character look tired. So I had to adjust those, had to finagle some of the settings. I could have stood to refine some of the shape keys and some of the movement and so forth. It wasn't 100% perfect, and you can see that in the animation. But again, this was mostly for a test. So, next time around, I might refine some of those in some of the timing. And I find the O sound, or oo, or W, whenever those phonemes come into play, the default settings for the lip syncing in iClone just don't work very well, and so sometimes some adjustments have to be made to really refine those. In this case, most of it worked pretty well. I think inside of iClone, there's one or two spots where I had to cut some information out. Again, possibly the shrug, maybe with some of the other phonemes. I can't remember, but yeah. So moving right along. I'm trying to think what else was there to this. I rendered the character separate from the background to make things faster. I just rendered one frame, and I think I combined them in the final animation. And again, you can see I'll play as soon as this comes back up. The biggest thing I've found with working with motion capture stuff is that sometimes like in this case, you can see the arms moving together in a weird way. So I probably would need to just adjust that to match the rest of his movement. They don't necessarily have to move exactly the same, because that helps make it more fluid. But there's some few things like that where he looks a little bit more like a puppet and less like a person. But the shrug came out pretty good. I'd probably want to adjust a few things, but yeah, that's the only comments I have on that. So I think that's pretty much it. Had to use some special lighting, rendering setups. I think I decreased the light pass, little things here and there. Used light tree just because of the environment and whatever that was in this case. Let's see what else. I think that's pretty much it. I'm trying to cover like all the little nuances. As far as AI goes, because AI is used in this in a couple places, but not in the way you expect. So Blender's not, to my knowledge, using any AI except for the denoising. It uses AI for the renderer. For like if I turn off denoising, you'll see a bunch of just a bunch of pixels, and it has denoising, and I think that's AI powered. Cascadeur uses AI for its auto posing, at least that's my understanding, and it is apparently a neural network based or machine learning based AI. So I wasn't sure if it was kind of old school programmed AI, but apparently it is the newer stuff. So that's pretty cool. I would assume it uses AI for the computer vision for the motion capture. And iClone, I guess, again, for the facial motion capture, might use AI for the computer vision. I would assume. I'm not sure if you can do that well without AI, but I don't know. That some of that stuff may I can't remember if that's always tied to AI or not. And one final spot of AI is actually the voice. It happens to be my voice through an AI filter to make it sound different. And that worked pretty well, I think, for what we wanted to do here. So that's probably even the most sophisticated use case of AI in this example. And I say that not necessarily the most sophisticated in a programming sense. It's more of just, it's a little, to be able to do that is a little bit newer. We've had some basic motion capture stuff for video since forever, as far as the technology goes. So, but as far as the voice, that's fairly new, and still not 100% on everything. As far as like, there's little things I'd like to refine. I might actually end up using auto-tune to correct some of the pitch. So we'll see where that goes. That I think pretty much covers everything. So like doing this again, next project, I want to work probably to refine a little bit more of the lip movements. Not necessarily everything, because you don't have time to refine every little detail. There's a few spots where the eyes get a little bit weird, like right here. So some corrections with that would probably be in order. But other than that, and other than just some of the weird motion with the arms in different spots, I'm really actually pretty happy with this. Blender now has their whole new stuff for their color management, and I'm looking forward to even taking that further with some things not related to it, but just doing some stuff with the color. So I'm excited for that. Yeah, I'm just trying to think any other little thing. I did find, in case it helps, I found adding hair as a separate object in Blender seems to help a lot. And that's good and bad. I think I'm using which modifier am I using? I'm trying to remember. I'll have to look it up. I think it's like the mesh surface one, where essentially you bake it on top of, you basically glue it together. And that works really well. The problem is if you need to hide parts of the mesh with the mask, so certain parts of the character's chest, I think, were coming out of the clothing, and that's a typical issue that a lot of times we just mask that out or whatever. That's fine, but then the hair basically just jumps off his head. Like if I do this, if the polygon count changes, the hair jumps off his head because it doesn't recognize some things. There's some internal math stuff that is kind of broken. So I had to reset that. And I mentioned that mostly for my own reference, but if you happen to be doing this yourself, if you're watching for doing your own animations, just keep that in mind. That's all that I can remember from my process. Again, just took it from Cascadeur, did the lip syncing in iClone. Hopefully at some point I'll be able to add props and other things, and maybe even talk about some of the process there. Oh, one other thing is, I'm going to turn my background back on, because the background is affecting the light, but you can't see it. And again, that was for render purposes. This is maybe my second animation that I have a background, and I find it works well to import it separately. Basically, everything is linked, so they're part of other files, and that's just kind of a safeguard so that we don't, so I'm not accidentally messing something up with these columns and then everything is broken. That's in a separate file, and so it's very much like the old school 2D animations where you had a painted background, but then you had the cell animation on top of that. That's kind of what I'm doing here, where I have the character it's doing its own thing. I might have some props, or in this case the table, and those I had imported into iClone. You can probably see it over here. I just didn't bother to line it up because that's some more steps I'll have to cover in another stream or video. But yeah, that's what I plan to do, where I'm not having to think about all the geometry inside of Cascadeur or iClone, just the geometry that affects the character or has something to do with the character. And that makes it so much simpler, because then I'm only having, again, to think about one or two things, at most a handful of things, rather than having to think about the entire background. And that's where you just have to plan out your scenes and your shots and whatever. I think that's it. Lighting is covered in other videos, so be sure to check those out once they're available. I'm publishing this probably to a couple of different platforms, so the platform I'm streaming this on the video may not be there by the time you watch this, but eventually, hopefully, it should be. And I'm really trying to dig deep, trying to remember if there was anything else, any little things that, like the eyes or whatever, little things that get in the way and just become a real pain. I think that's it for this video. Hopefully in other videos I can talk about other things like the lighting, like we'll cover, because that's already been recorded, but other things like what do you do with props, what do you do with certain kinds of issues, that kind of thing. So all right, I will end things here. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments. Please consider following, subscribing, liking the video, getting notifications for this channel, all those good things. Please, 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 because that's that's a big thing about how us creators get started, and I'm still working on that. So please consider helping me out in that way, and hopefully I will see you soon. Take care, guys.